Welcome back, everyone. 皆さん、お帰りなさい。今日は184日目です。It is day 184, and it is Wednesday again. So Wednesday, as per the roadmap, they're adding and moving things. So it looks like we have 4 lessons. Not sure if it's kanji or vocabulary. We'll find out later after our review. It's business as usual. Yeah, where we are getting normalized to all the new stuff from level 18. Right, gonna hop right in now. Let's do our reviews. Okie dokie. I underestimate how many of these were exceptions or differences. Like I think like this one. Yeah. Mugon. Oh, and this one. Maybe not. Yeah, I think this one's different too. Yeah. Hannah has, yeah, Hanamono. Or no, not Hanamono, Hannah. Was it not Hannah? Oh no, Sheena. Shinamono. Okay. Doki doki. This one's different too. Hatsukoi. Densetsu. That's kind of different as well. In the meaning department. That's also different. Yobi. Naoru. That one's okay. Geki. That's fine. Oh, that's technically different too. Because it's not using the kun. Or it doesn't have a kun. Omamori. This one's different in terms of its definition. Oh, this is a burn. Hachi. It's a good burn. Hairu.
書き方
Kakikata.
3
This is a good burn. Oh, wait. Oh, the kun? Ne? Wait, what? The kun? Was this changed today? Yeah, did this just get changed today? I'm absolutely positive this just got changed today. So I don't know what this is. We're probably gonna make an exception. This is the first time this has ever happened. I'm absolutely certain this got changed today. And it's probably got changed because they wanted to introduce the kun because the vocabulary is a kun before this. So I don't know what this is. We're gonna put we're gonna type boo. And then we're gonna see what it is. Yeah, they changed it. I'm absolutely 100% know that this used to be ko and not tata. In fact, this is the first tata or second tata. Barely even second tata because the other one is more like tatara. So I'm absolutely certain 100% this got changed. So now we have to relearn this. What is the meaning? So on your mouth is a stamp that you tap and strike. So they kept that the same to create a beat, but it's ko that's doing the beat. Like, I think the stamp looks like a little drum, but you're really just hitting your mouth. Okay, so that stays the same, tap, strike, and slap. But the reed got changed. When you tap and strike the stamp on your, you make a tata sound. Okay, that actually flows even better than imagine ko imitating you or something like that. Ko joining in. Imagine yourself making a beat with a little stamp drum on your, now listen, tata. Okay, so that's fine. And we're gonna remove this because this is technically the first time we've ever seen that, which actually works a lot better. So that's fine. Yeah, so I'm 100% that got changed. 100%. The re-priority was changed. Interesting.
留学生
Ryugakusei. Obviously, I don't have any problems with whether they change things or not. It's a great example of a point of frustration if you're not using like a script or have a workflow that accounts for these things. And that can be a point of frustration for people, but if they are not using double check and all the other things, and they're already way past this, like if they learned the thing already, you can look at the patch notes. But then again, the patch notes are not like up in front of your face to tell you, hey, this has changed, or you have a warning, which has been one of the community feedbacks for this. Like, can we get like, and they integrate warnings into the UI, but obviously also knowing that it changed is kind of all right to me. I knew that it got changed, so that's great. I remember it. Now I probably don't have to remember ko for the next, I've got reinforcement for ko. That's besides the point though, right? I sympathize for those who are going vanilla and do not get a chance to alter that because there's no way you would know in advance, right? Unless you look at the patch notes or the content section. This is different too. Well, yes. Oh no.
駅弁
It's me thinking that Eki was kun, which it isn't.
Toku
Oku. What?
留
Oops.
守番
Rusubam. Rusubam wa ne? This one's special too. We had, yeah, this last level was some stretches. It's actually, it feels nice because up until the majority to this level, the majority is like right on the nose, or they're bending it very, very strictly verbatim. And being further out and needing to stretch and look for other threads is kind of nice. It's making it so that the exceptions don't feel as crazy out. It's a bit nice, actually. Change of pace a little for the thought process. Like this one's pretty far out there. So is this one. That one's on the nose. This one's far out there. That's a burn. It's a good burn. This one's far out there. I think most of these are now starting to enter the area where, yeah, it's very difficult to create a holistic radical. Only in retrospect can you try to modify the radicals and the words and stuff to make it so that it fit the majority of vocabulary and whatnot, and you just have to stretch. I mean, trying to unify the stuff is training wheels, right? Training wheels. So interesting. It's an interesting challenge, I would say. Something that I would consider doing for fun in the future.
無名
Like for if someone said, oh yeah, I have problems with this, and then looking for patterns that link common problems or common confusions and then try to resolve them with mnemonics, that sounds like something really fun to do in the future. Not necessarily for the purpose of Japanese fluency or that stuff. I personally like doing those things, and then if you learn Japanese on the side, it's great. It's great. You know?
察する
Asuru.
Hito
Oh, this is a good burn.
金曜日
Inyobi.
辞書形
Ishoke.
察知
Sachi. 2つ.
2つ
This is a good burn. Okay. Eka.
Kigeki.
Ingeki. What? Wait.
Warai.
What I need to be careful. I keep getting the A's in the wrong in like all mixed up. How just a laugh? A laugh? Okay, that's fine. I don't know if that got changed or not. A laugh. Interesting. How does this work? Simple suit. Or simple, yeah, no, simple, is that supposed to be spirit? Oh, simple spirit, austerity. Austere. What did I forget? Because this is forget. Yellow? Okay. I don't actually know how this works. The death of your heart will cause you to forget all the important things. Oh yeah, because that's where the heart stores memories too. Okay, alright.
Owarai.
Owarai. This one is special.
Mitsu.
Mitsu. It's a good burn. That's a good burn.
Kakawaru.
Kakawaru.
Mukyu.
Mukyu. This one was special too.
Hagaki.
Hagaki. Oops. What? Oh.
Shitagaki.
Shitagaki. This one's kinda special, but soon will not become, will become pretty normal standard if this is if we're reaching a critical point where now we have to provide nuances to the mnemonics. Because the vocabulary is becoming emergent. Oh no.
無料
Video.
関西弁
Saiben.
書き直す
Akinaosu. Oops.
上品
Yohin. Uh. とても上品なね味です。Something of elegant, right? Elegant. That's kind of special too. Retroactive. Yeah, lots of extra. So all the demand, many of the over half of the new stuff requires 2 steps or like a further step away. It's kind of nice because then you're just on your toes for the most part. Yeah, this one too. Wait. It's the how did this work? Then children. Oh.
子守歌
Omoriuta. Yeah, see, this one requires gymnastics too. And also the definition requires a little gymnastics.
水曜日
Suihobi. Oh, wait. This might... No, I don't... Wait.
結局
Gekyoku. This one's okay. Now this is kind of average. Oh, no, the definition has a spin on it. It's a 2-step spin. Like your... Yeah, this is an exception too. It requires 2 steps. This is the classic. Zusetsu. Oh wait, hold up. No, this kinda requires a 2-step thing too for the definition.
閉まる
Okay, this one is fine. And then all the radicals require 1 step regardless. Pretty standard.
歌劇
Kageki.
一つ
Sotsu. Right. This is a good burn. So no
月曜日
Getsuyobu. No questionable burns yet. No requirements for a burn review. This one...
固まる
It's kind of standard. Pretty standard. This one is not standard.
無事
Legit. Minority read so far on the left, and then it's both minority reads, two combinations of minority reads. And also the definition is a flex too. Yeah, this level has been interesting. I think the vast majority requires a double step, a farther double step on meaning, and then on the reads. Pretty much almost across the board, far more majority, which is nice because it allows me to flex and practice that type of thing, because being unpracticed on it, you get into this habit of just typing on your gut feeling, and then the gut feeling kind of falls short a lot of times if it's not based on things that you're used to. That's a good burn.
大丈夫
Daijoubu. This is different too.
なし
Nashi. Nashi. And the definition is a flex. Uh,
完結
Anketsu. This requires a definition flex. Setsume. This is actually somewhat of an exception because it doesn't shorten. I think shortening happens far more, like so far at least. It might be more common than it is uncommon for just the vocabulary. I'm not saying like all of Japanese. So far, I'm pretty sure shortening happens more than non-shortening, especially when a t is before something, not after, but before. This requires a definition flex as well. I should start figuring out how often segregating like definition flexes and reading flexes. I'm calling it a flex because I'm literally and figuratively thinking about the brain as like a muscle, right? Where if you're flexing, it means that you don't compound it or cluster it into a single step. So when I'm saying flex, it means it takes me double the time. I'm doing the first step, then a second step to reach to the answer. And at some point, when you do that quick enough, it becomes a singular step. So you go from one step to the next, right? So when you ever have to flex, you're making an extra effort to go further. And flex is good, in my opinion. For me, when I'm learning something, I need to flex. Like my brain has to flex, or else it's less memorable. It means I'm very complacent. I'm not trying very hard, right? And yes, I have been doing a combination of that. Whenever I say I just type a gut feeling and it goes, that means I'm spending the least amount of effort because this stuff is stuff I should know. So that means I'm not learning anything. I'm practicing. Practicing requires a substantially smaller amount of effort than learning, personally. And then whenever you ever have to flex, despite practicing, it's a harder practice. And that's what makes that whole feeling, oh, this is harder to remember because you might have to flex because it's an exception. And now, since this whole unit, the majority of it is flexing definitions and flexing reads, it's easier to do that than when a vocabulary is straightforward, because you start questioning, wait, is this straightforward or not? And that's kind of the idea about being complacent. When you keep assuming everything follows, then you have to make an extra step, right? If your first step is constantly to assume, oh yeah, this is onyomi, this is got to be 2 kunyomis because there's ki in it, right? That would be your standard. And then you start thinking, wait a minute, do I need to flex and think about something else? That's kind of what I mean by the word flex. You're flexing out of your range of comfort, right? Not flexing as in showing off how much you know. That's kind of like a contemporary use of the word flex, right? You're being flexible. Flex. And in a way, it's kind of showy because you're trying to do more than you can. That's like the contemporary use and the old use is linked to some extent. Yeah. So much flexing. Like this is a flex too.
落書き
Rakugaki is an exception. Raku being on, pretty sure, and gaki being kun, and it also has a rendaku. But it's not a double kun rendaku, it's just that the right is a kun, so, and it's right for rendaku, despite being preceded by an onyomi. And then the definition is also a flex, which is graffiti.
無理
Moody, the definition requires a flex. Oops, not moody. Sorry. The definition. Wait. Yeah. Wait. What? No reason? Oh. Yep. Requires a flex. Moody. Okay. From the baseline, obviously from whatever WaniKani has chosen to be the base mnemonic. Announce. Announce. What are we announcing? Oh, it's like oil mouth. Koku. Oh no, koku. That's kind of a leap. Koku. Yeah, that one's a bit of a leap. This one is too. This one is too. It's actually, it has a lot of reads, but they only introduced a mnemonic for easy. The definition is a flex. This one too. Yeah, this one too.
9
Good burn.
警察
Pretty normal. The definition is a flex. I think the definition is the smallest flex. So if you have to like wiggle your way to the definition, that's probably the most common thing that would be natural in translation, because there's a natural translation habit that most would develop. The read ones are kind of out there. Not, and I think the flex from using near rhymes is better for me than using near rhymes. The near rhymes, the ones that are on the head, like sheen for Shina, That's not cool. That doesn't help me. That makes it worse. So it works the other way around. If you're so used to having 2 or 3 steps, it might be difficult to go back to 1 step. Like if you do, like, for example, someone could be very used to presuming a leap of logic until it's no longer a leap of logic. Like, for example, how do you get better at running? You can also walk, but you could make a leap of logic that walking has nothing to do with running, because running is something you do more often when you focus on improving than walking. That's a flex on leap of logic. So at first it would be walking then running, but when you get so used to hopping over the thing, it's no longer you don't longer use logical reasoning. You do use logical reasoning, but you require a leap of logic where you leap over some of the steps. It's kind of like computer programming for the first time. When you're using like a low level language, like low as in from native language, it reveals a lot of the leap of logic that you how to what extent is your leap of logic. Like correlation. Any type of thing that leads from correlation to causation requires a leap of logic. It's not a bad or a good thing. Inherently, holistically, when you use correlation to infer, right, to infer or imply causation, that requires a leap of logic. There's nothing that literally demonstrates those two things, like the two corollary things could cause something. It requires you to make the leap, and that's kind of why sometimes that can be a little dangerous, in the sense that if one is not aware that you're doing a leap of logic, one does not investigate or talk about the leap of logic or think about what alternatives could be. Every leap you make, no matter the bigger the leap it is, the more likely that you'll have more things to consider in between. So without the self-awareness of that, like a habit that you do, for example, let's say you always get up tired, right? Well, your leap of logic would be, oh yeah, you're not getting enough sleep, or your whatever you believe is true, right? Like, oh, I just sleep late, that's why I'm tired. That's a leap of logic. You don't know if they're connected. They're correlated and they make sense, so it's likely that it's involved. However, you didn't demonstrate that you have lack of sleep. For that, you need data and then more things in between, because a lot of times, for example, someone would say sleep is a little bit nebulous enough that no matter what, you're going to require a leap of logic. But let's say food, right? This has happened already before, where eating fats lead to someone who gets fat, because fats have a lot of calories, and when you consume a lot of calories, you get fat, right? But it's not the fat that gets people fat, like the characteristic of fats, right? It's more likely overconsumption. And then you think of overconsumption, it's like, okay, well, people die of heart attacks all the time, and it's definitely because of being fat. Well, yes and no, because you're leaping to the conclusion that all the other things involved in eating do not contribute to people's heart health, like eating no fat but over consuming will still lead to heart disease, right? So that's kind of one of those things that I tend to not necessarily criticize other people for, in the sense of putting them down, more like attempting to encourage them to find more answers. like more details, get a better answer, and a better answer. Because humans, they cut corners. I cut corners, and that's kind of coming through in the studies. So it's a breath of fresh air. I really like this level. You might be thinking, or someone might be saying, well, aren't all the levels the same? You just learn a bunch of vocabulary words and then you move on, and it's all disjointed with no context or sentimentalism. Leap of logic. That's the answer. Leap of logic. You leapt to the conclusion that people don't have attachments to vocabulary or words and meanings. And yet, I probably would say the person making that comment probably also make comments to themselves when they forget a very specific word and they remember specific words. You can use the awareness of that to your advantage. I remember words that I use a lot and think about, and I don't remember the words as well, the ones that I rarely use or don't think about, right? So I try to think about those, while the words that I do use very often, I don't worry about it too often, right? Despite having SRS on top of SRS. And me talking about this kind of highlights that this level is quite pleasant. It's getting me juiced. Like I'm getting a good workout from this level. The previous level was it was, despite knowing the vocabulary, it's pretty unmemorable. Like I didn't notice any shift in practice. This one's great. This one's nice. I like it.
仮説
Kasetsu. Kasetsu. Oh, it even have like science words, so or words that I would use when I'm talking about causation and correlation and stuff, like hypotheses. Kasetsu.
証明書、
証明書。証明書。ね。Evidence. Is that evidence? Yeah. Write evidence book. Write evidence writing. Oh, yeah. This requires a flex too. Or certify. Certified. Wait, how do I spell it? Certificate is what they want, maybe? Okay, they wanted the noun. I kept typing certification, so I needed to correct that a little bit.
無力
Muryoku. This one's probably the most straightforward. Oh, and then all the like the
書き入れる
typically kuns are pretty straightforward because kuns are unique to Japanese. Oh, like in my palace, kuns are like immediately recognizable in this type of format because there's kana and it's kun. Whenever there's kana and kun, it's Japanese. There's less, I don't have to go through an extra step of delineating from Chinese. Because I want to. I practice that. So it's not a bad thing. It actually reinforces Chinese a lot. Or to write in, I guess, is what they want. Because that is kind of the act of writing in.
一人、
Hitori, that's a good burn. Whoops.
土曜日、
Oyobi. Actually, I need to practice not doing do. Whenever I say doyobi, sometimes whenever I say do, I have a habit of using English like English moda. So then when I hear doyobi, I type do yobi instead of doyobi. That is because of what I hear. Most of the time when I'm reading this, I'm actually hearing it in my head. So whatever I pronounce, I type by habit. And I don't know how often people do this, but when they type, you know, like when I'm typing a sentence in Discord and stuff, I'm saying it in my head. Most of the stuff I'm saying in my head. So oftentimes I would make a comment like, oh yeah, I can type as fast as I talk because that's my cadence. Now when I'm consuming things, when I'm inputting things, right, when someone is telling me things, I'm thinking way faster than I can type or output. But whenever I'm output, everything is synchronized. The sound in my head is synchronized with the feeling in my hands. Everything is like synchronized on output because I spend more time speaking, like speaking in English, and I output speech, writing, typing, my hands, and maybe my motions all are synchronized most of the time. And then input is like the world is, the sky's the limit. I'm like thinking about 4 or 5 separate things at the same time, toggling back and forth. But the moment I output, it's going to be synchronized with how I imagine myself typing. Like, you know, if you ever air type, right? Like, think about if you can do this, right? Say, like, you say, I was at home, right? So I moved my fingers like I was on the keyboard without having to feel it, right? I was at home, and I'm moving my hands with my speech and hearing it. So now I can just think in my head and say, right, that I was home. This is the same as my hand motions. So when I think of shu, right? So instead of using a typing motion, I use a hand motion in which I am drawing in the air. So that I've been doing that quite a lot. This is to guide like my drawing and stuff. And then when I'm drawing trees, right? You can, you know, do a key, and then you can embellish the trees. So you can also simulate how your hand is moving with a brush, long brush, or like just finger dynamic movements. So all of these things have become like culminated in everything that I've done to encode things. It involves moving. So most of my encode deals with moving, auditory, whether it's literal or not. It can be mentally auditory. Sometimes auditory can be tactile. So like if something literally hits you in the face with a lot of force, you can kind of remember that, but that's more like tactility. But generally when I'm encoding, it deals with an auditory component, a tactile component, and a visual component. So I don't know about smell. Food has this distinct advantage where there's also smell and taste, right? Smell and taste comes into play, your 5 senses. So when someone's talking about what is, in my opinion, what are things that can improve encoding? Not the best. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm talking about consistently improving. If you are not using a tactile synchrony with in encoding and visual, you can leave, you're leaving those on the table, right? Are they super like fundamental to learning? No, they don't. Your brain is. So you can I've talked about this quite a lot before, about how people think there's a style that they learn. There's a practiced way that they learn, which becomes their style. But outside of nature versus nurture question, the answer is both. And when you have both, that means nurture is part of the equation, right? Despite if you have, I don't know, let's just assume by some weird thing, genetics dictate that you're bad at visual learning. But if you don't do any visual learning, then it's 0. So any visual learning is more than 0 visual learning, because nurture is still part of the equation. So you can still tack on visuals. Now, some people will think, well, that's not optimized. You don't want to invest in a component of your learning if it have less significant impact. That's where diminished return comes in. Sometimes when you rely solely on one aspect of your senses, you can only get so optimized with that sense. And it gets to a point where that diminished return kicks in so much that despite having, quote unquote, if you believe in it, a genetic component that dampens one of your senses, it is still a place for investment that is less than trying to optimize your current senses. So despite all of the classical, oh, that's not the way I learn the best this way, I learn the best that way, and I will only do this because I'm only capable of learning this. Unless you're specifically genetically hit the unlucky button and you literally cannot get an input from those things, like being blind, for example. Shout outs to the blind people. And then obviously the people who are deaf cannot hear what I'm saying. But technology kind of has an alternative to that, like live caption, right? Live caption of what I'm saying. And those are different definitions that are linked to a different sense that you might have lost, but compensation happens, right? So in those cases, yes, you can make a valid argument if you believe that you can hear, see, and touch, and you assume that if you decide to pretend you're not able to touch or hear and only see, like a person who's deaf and maybe someone who has neuronal damage or lack of neuronal sensitivity in their hands, and you focus all on sight, that somehow all your other things are blocked out, you probably still get most of it. Personally though, that's still energy spent not doing the other things. So that's kind of another thing about retention, where no, it might seem silly that I'm doing my hand gestures, but I know how to write these things, right? And some people say like, oh, for whatever reason writing helps you retain certain things, and that's squeezing out stuff. Like, it's squeezing extra, right? It's squeezing extra. I think though there is a disproportion. Not all senses are created equal for this, but all senses are still greater than 0, right? And when you're looking for that edge after realizing that you relied solely on a specific aptitude for a really long time, the ones that I hear when they say, oh yeah, this skill, despite knowing that its contribution might be less, it like changed the way they studied, it can also be an indicator that they don't do that very often up to this point, right? And for myself, writing, listening, and seeing have been a component of my learning. And maybe after like the 6th or 7th grade, right? And that's how. And then there's upper level stuff, mnemonics, mind palace, a situational association. There's a lot more emergent stuff that people value far more than even the empirical stuff. Again, leap of logic, from my first digression, a leap of logic. A leap of logic is that if you're so used to complexity is the only way you'll be able to learn, right? And one of the things about learning a language is, well, chief, you got to go back to the basics. And that's what learning a new skill helps, especially when it is a skill that fundamentally has to change the way you view complexity. the whole top-down versus bottom-up approach. You can do both in the beginning, because in the beginning you don't have the foundations enough to do a top-down at a specific efficiency, and then bottom-up can become a competitive process with top-down. When you're used to using your own language, it can be as complex as possible, and that is certainly my comfort zone. Why did I choose to use SRS then? Because it's fun. It tickles it flexes the brain a little bit, right? Learn to construct and build something with Lego blocks again. It's been a while since I picked up a Lego set. When I was a kid, I picked up a Lego set, or I built things, you know, I made paper planes, but those paper planes were not planes. I didn't take an airplane and decide, oh yeah, this is what a paper plane should look like. It should look like an airplane, like an aircraft. Try making an aircraft out of paper, right? Or learning how to, quote unquote, relearning how to draw. I did a top-down approach because conceptually I understood a lot of the concepts of drawing back then that I still had. So when I was drawing back then, it was fundamentals. You drew spheres and you work on still life and try to observe the shapes and whatnot. But then later down the road, you can do a top-down approach. So both. And I chose to use SRS, or at least some semblance of SRS, because I haven't done this in a while, in a very long time. So being stuck in your ways, if you're bored and not stimulated, try doing it the hard way. It'd be interesting. Not that if you don't have time, stick with the things you do. If they still work, they work, right? It might not be as entertaining, but like intellectually stimulating, in my opinion. It's unlikely to be intellectually stimulating if you're constantly learning the same way. Even learning methods is a means to an end, but it can be unengaging. That's like telling yourself that you're okay with upper level cortex stuff. Like as long as the game has a good story, it doesn't matter what the game plays like. Try selling that to a majority of young people who are unaware about learning methods, or stick to one learning method. What is the most habitually, intuitively engaging approach to learning? Change up the way they engage with the content. If the content continues to change, it's not sufficient enough to get them to learn, right? So when it comes to video games, the method in which, the process in which you engage with the content tends to be the thing that promotes a lot of changes or learning capacity intuitively. Now, for myself, that's optional. The game could play like butt, or the game could be a walking sim for all I care. There is merit into the content, the transformative intellectual side of things. But if the gameplay is really cool and stuff, that's also both. I would want a game that plays well and a content. I don't make double standards though. If a game has a great story and all I do is click forward, good, I'll find value in that. If the game plays really well and the story is butt, I'll still enjoy it. But generally, when it comes to video games, I'm looking for both. Right? Those are the things that I make time for. Language learning is, for lack of a better word, more interesting and intellectually stimulating than playing a video game. Now, for a while, until it becomes the norm, and then now I'm seeking other inspiration. So this stuff, like I don't want to say that this is going to be taken with a grain of salt. Duolingo, after the year, became very stagnant because I have no other way to transform the Duolingo experience. So using WaniKani and Hanzahiro, WaniKani allows me to transform the Duolingo Japanese experience because I'm learning other things to integrate to it. Now, oftentimes, when people are unaware of the way they learn and how they engage, the things that they already know how to do are the least engaging things and will likely become the most repetitious things in the long run. Duolingo is an example of that. And in fact, it's a watered down version of that. So when people think that they can constantly understand paragraphs and high level understanding with like meaning and nuances, then yes, Duolingo would look reductive and repetitious because yeah, you know how to form a sentence. Or do you? I like to think that despite this is an oxymoronic phrase or self-conflicting, self-contradictory phrase when someone says, I don't remember anything in Duolingo after using it because Duolingo doesn't teach me anything, but it is repetitious because I already know all of it. That's in the same sentence sometimes. When someone says, oh, Duolingo doesn't teach you anything, and then you say it's repetitious. Because if it's repetitious, then it means you already know the thing. But you don't. So there's a leap of logic, and that leap of logic causes a self-contradiction. If you think something is repetitious, then you have already convinced yourself that it's repetitious in the nature that you already know it. In order for something to be repetitious, it means you already know what to do, already know the material. But there's a leap of logic in there. You didn't retain the material. You didn't understand the material, nor do you recall the material, and that's why you dislike the product. But it's not both. It can't be repetitious and teaching you nothing. Things that are repetitious means you remember them, despite not understanding them. Those are different things. Understanding them also implies a bigger picture thing. It leads to more complexity and emergence. But when something is repetitious, it means you remember the act, whatever it is. It could be literally just finding the right answer without remembering anything about what you're answering or what you're translating. And that's perfectly fine. But it does mean you learned something. It might not be the thing you want, and that's why you should use a different tool. But it's not logical how you came to that conclusion because it requires a lot of leap of logic to get to it, at least in my opinion. So oftentimes understanding this, you might be thinking, well, doesn't that just make the person feel bad? No, I don't think so. When you understand these things and you spend a lot of time, like if you're upset, right? And you can explain why you're upset in a manner that it is consistent so that you can do that later with other things, you're less likely to be upset. And you are more likely to make decisions that will make you more consistent in not repeating those mistakes. So like, for example, if something is repetitious, it means you know the thing. Now the question is, if it's the thing you don't want, how do you remediate that? That would be your next focus. The next time you use a different product, now you can focus on that. It's like, oh, okay, now I start to feel like this product's repetitious. But how do I measure? Does this product help me measure the things that I want to remember? How do I measure the thing that I want to remember versus the thing that the tool is telling me to do, right? Then you start plugging relationships together. So ultimately, that makes, oh, I know this works for me. Oh, I don't know this works for me. Far more consistent and more meaningful. And how do I know that the vast majority of people don't do this when they try to offer me advice about learning? I ask them why they think or how they think those are connected. And if they're not able to explain it, then what are the chances they're accurate about me? If I'm looking for that information, then I already know how it's going to help me. I'm more likely to know how it's going to help me and why it's going to help me if I use that product than the person that's talking to me. That's kind of like if you go to a teacher who spent most of their lives trying to figure those things out for other students and themselves, I'm more likely to rely on that person's insight. It's different from someone who's consuming and just happens to know it works and then pass it off as, hey, this worked for me, so it might as well work for you. It's like, well, let's spend a couple months getting to know each other before you understand if it works or not, because the way you're offering advice is based on emotional bias. It's not based on logical thinking. If you can't even demonstrate logical thinking from your own perspective, it still can work out. But in my opinion, it works out because it's based on one size fits all. It's like averaging. So if I'm not doing something, no matter what, hear me out. If someone offers me advice, and let's just say they pay me to do it, it's going to work. Like, does that prove that you're right? No, it doesn't. Because if you come to me and you're like, try my product, I'll pay you, can you see if my product works? I'm going to find out what works about it and then what doesn't work about it. But no matter what, it's going to work. Like, you already have me sold. So when I trust people, that's where I draw the line, right? I want something that distinguishes someone who thinks and feels about the things they do with empathy and emotional intelligence versus anyone, because I don't want to self-affirm something that may not be true. So if you're asking me, will your advice work? The answer is yes, because I believe in the advice that I take. Now, if someone says this is hot garbage, I will probably find it to be less garbage. It's part of my personality. So I understand that I am not a great benchmark for if you want affirmation for your product to work, and then does it really work? Because I will find ways to make it work. And that would be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when someone says, oh yeah, Duolingo doesn't work, then I would be the antithesis of that, because I would find the things that work in Duolingo as well as the things that don't. So the devil's in the details. There are things that do work and there are things that don't. Things that don't exist don't work at all. But Duolingo exists. So it's kind of a moot point. Like, what doesn't exist or close to not existing? People learning a language by reading the dictionary. Like, literally just reading the dictionary. Right? So, like, and I'm saying it rarely exists. I'm not even saying it doesn't exist. So despite that, Duolingo is doing more than a dictionary. Right? Or it's trying to. It's trying to do more than a dictionary. It's very highly likely that way. So yes, and I still like my dictionary. Dictionaries serve a lot of applications. So much like a dictionary is not going to teach you how to natively speak and construct sentences. Right? So that's kind of a thought in my background. And I am very highly selective when I take advice. But know that when I take someone's advice, it's going to have transformative events. Like someone who believes their game is terrible, but they are my friend. Well, I'm going to play the heck out of that game and I'm going to do the best I can to explain my thoughts about the game. The game has value because it already does, not because it exists, not that it is better or worse. I understand that that's not the greatest thing for someone who's looking for an objective opinion. I think that is definitely in the field of making needs happen. So if you're super deficient in things, so we're talking about hobbies here, choices for language learning. Language learning is a hobby for me because I have English, and I think I have a fairly excellent, above average command of the English language, and that's sufficient. So I think the word I would use is sufficient. And it sucks because it's a double edge. When someone says, this is better, and I use it, it's probably going to be better. Now, the person could use that as an evidence that's like, see, I told you so, I'm correct. It's like, no, it's better because it's something else that I'm doing with everything else. Now, if someone says, oh yeah, just stop and do whatever you're doing, like just stop using WaniKani and then use Anki, and I will still confirm what Anki can do well, and the person's like, see, I told you so. And then they would say, isn't it better than WaniKani? The answer is, it's not better than WaniKani and Anki. And the one defeatist, like the way to destroy my argument is, but what if you don't have enough time for WaniKani and Anki? Which one would you choose? And my answer would be, I would choose whichever one that works. Which is either. Whichever one came first. And then until they don't work, I'll move on to the other one. If they stop working or they work less, I'll devote less time to it and make room for the next one. So then I would eventually do Anki and WaniKani again. Only less time on WaniKani and more time on Anki. So they all work. Things that exist probably works, especially things that are popular. So whenever someone offers advice, it's likely going to be popular enough to be significant. And because of that, I already believe it works. Now, when someone comes up and say, it's better than this, and I'm like, explain to me. And if you can explain it to me, then yes, I'm on board. We'll try to make time for it, and then evaluate it based on that. If you can't explain it to me and just say, whoa, you're weird, man, then that's perfectly fine. It's funny to be called a weird person when that person talks to me like I'm an object and not a person. I don't know who's weirder. You could say that the new norm was once weird, and the old norm is now weird. What is now weird? Saying hello, greetings, reading about the person or knowing about the person before assuming everything about them. That used to be normal. Now I'm getting called weird for using multiple ways to judge character, while also confirming and asking and waiting for my character profiling and judgment to be either true or false, and then adapt to it before I trust the person. That is now weird. Too many steps. It's too complicated. It takes too much time, right? Humans should take 5 minutes to understand, and that is the new norm. And I get criticized or be called names, and my character gets attacked most of the time for spending the time treating other people like human beings, and then pushing back when someone stops treating me like a human being. That is the new norm, the new leap of logic. The leap of logic is, if you're a Twitch streamer, you should be playing video games, right? If you're a WaniKani user, you will eventually discover that Anki is better. That's a great leap of logic. And if you start with Duolingo, you'll regret 2 years down the line that you learned nothing from Duolingo. Those are some classic ones. I got more. I got more weapons in the tool shed. A lot more leap of logics. A year and a half provides, despite only meeting like one or two people every week or so, one or two new person who only talks for like 3 minutes and then they're out of my life. Despite all of that, I think I average about 200, 300 people a year, and plenty of illustrations of what leap of logic is in this day and age. How people no longer practice using critical thinking skills to stay aware and then iterate on the process because the internet has removed the need to do that, right? If you're playing Persona, you obviously are a Persona fan. And if you're a Persona fan, then you must obviously hate Phantom X, because Phantom X is a gacha game and it's not like a Persona game. Leap of logic. Actually, I talked about that a little bit in my Phantom X stuff later down the road, right? That is the current leap of logic for those who are most vocal. Again, most vocal doesn't necessarily mean the majority. I think majority actually is satisfied with Phantom X, but that's besides the point. The majority might not be the majority people who play Persona 5. In fact, those who play Persona X is like 4 to 5 times bigger in population than those who have played Persona 5. And because of the Steam sale, which I feel like the publishers were very keen on releasing and launching Phantom X a little before Steam sale, I feel like that was a very strategic move. Maybe it's a coincidence, but I feel like it's a strategic move. When I looked at the sales chart on Steam for the Steam sale week, Persona 5, Persona 3 Reload are in the top 100. And you might be thinking, well, that's not a big deal. They're all, games when they go on sale, they always top the charts. This is during a Steam sale. That means all the relative games have heightened sale figures on Steam sale, and they crack the 100. Despite not being on the chart, even like Persona 5 wasn't on the charts. Maybe on sales they might be on charts, but it didn't chart that high after the initial launch. So, and Phantom X is on the chart too. So that means a lot of people play gacha on Phantom X. Or maybe that's not how they register. I don't know how they register that type of thing. Because generally games with microtransactions are habitually at the top of the Steam charts. So somehow they're gathering revenue data on them. Great example. Anyways, thought I share a little bit. Today's been going pretty smoothly. Some commentary. I will be talking about the thing that sparked all this, like engaging the senses. I'll be sharing those. Those are my personal anecdotes on day 200. I've been working on it because I only have 15 days left. 15 days left before the big 200. And the 200 will be a very different story. Like, I'm gonna try to... Now I know a lot of things that I've altered and whatnot. And today was implementing some of that. Talking about flexing and thinking about the steps that I'm making to get to the answer kind of situation. And it's often overly complicated, clunky, and slow at first, right? That's the idea. And then it becomes automated and clustered again. So, and sometimes it can become under practice, but generally speaking, constantly finding new ways and being observant and aware of what you're doing is what makes me who I am today. So I'm often curious if someone could describe their legacy in the way they have improved the way they learn skills over time. I would, if skill building, if I could be paid for skill building, sign me up. Sign me up. I honestly, I had thought about it, but there's no track or vetting process to like test out skill building apps. I thought about like stopping language learning. Yeah, I know. That's crazy because some people would say like, why'd you put in so much work to language learning if you're not going to master or become fluent in Japanese and Chinese? That wasn't the goal originally. It was to learn how to learn a language, not master it. I will keep the language that I have now. Like someone yesterday asked me, why did I pause my Spanish Duolingo sessions? Because it just suddenly hit a pause. Like I hit a pause because Phantom X happened. It's very interesting to me and intellectually stimulating, and Duolingo Spanish is something that's being worked on. So pause doesn't mean I stopped practicing or I abandoned that knowledge. That knowledge will stay with me until I unpause. So the good news is the word pause is very useful. It suggests that it can be continued again. I like to think that there are people out there who says, why did you quit learning Spanish? And I say, I didn't ever quit learning most things. They're usually paused. Now my foray into English again hit the unpause. It's very useful to learn English and work on English again because you're learning another language. You don't pause, you don't quit something, at least in my opinion. You can finish things though. I'm sympathetic to that. So like when you finish a game, that's fair. I try not to stop thinking about a game I finished though. So in a way, that game isn't like done and gone. I use them. I try to retain as much memory as I can. Now, does it give me an anxiety attack when I forget things or like try to recall things and can't remember them? It does. That's one of the insecurities that I share all the time. When I go to bed and I have a dream about something and I wake up and I'm like, did I do that? Like, why did I think about that? I don't have any recollection of that. Then I start to worry, like, did I forget things? One of my biggest fears is the one thing that, in my opinion, people take for granted, and that's memory. Memory, critical thinking, problem solving skills. I worry one day that I don't have the mental capacity to solve my own problems. And when I say people take it for granted, is I think a large majority of people don't solve problems at all. They avoid and ignore them and then have other people give them the solution that isn't even a solution that works. It's a solution they believe in. So if you believe in a solution long enough, it can promote forward progress. It doesn't make you a better problem solver because you don't care to solve problems. You don't worry about if problems are a problem because you think you know that there's someone else that will solve the problem for you. And that's perfectly valid. It's a way to hopefully live the rest of your life not needing that skill. Honestly, in an ideal world with like conveniences and stuff, I would think now the majority of younger people would prefer that they never have to solve a problem. The problems get solved for them as they arrive. So the idea of the internet providing that wealth of knowledge is habit forming. Habit forming is the word I would say. So how do you learn a language? Go online and find out for someone to tell you how to learn a language. Right? And then you follow it wholeheartedly, believing in the process without any due process, due diligence, discipline, self-evaluation, or any problem solving or critical thinking involved. And then what do? You propagate that and tell other people the same thing. Trust me, bro. And that will work. It will work until it doesn't. And then you meet someone who doesn't. And then they will present you with the product and thing that they didn't solve themselves from another person. And that will stimulate competition. But it wouldn't stimulate competition in the way that it elevates both products. The product people are the ones that elevate their products. So when we think about like video games and app design and stuff, do they improve over time? And does that improvement tie up with feedback from the vast majority of people? The answer is no. Statistically, no. What they're looking for in feedback is if you like the game or not. For those who actually have, in my opinion, this is not bad or good, it's more like wants and desires versus difficulty and inconveniences. The majority of gamer wants to be pandered. What that is not something that's very clear other than statistics and money, right? So if a business hands out, like if a publisher hands out 100,000 copies and 90,000 of them come back with, I like this game, it's great, I think this game feels good, and this game panders to me, and that's all they got, that's good. That's 90%, right? And that's feedback that they want, right? But the other 10% will be really critical about it, and those are probably your one-off people, your content creators, your detailed oriented people who are operating a business and whatnot, and they will say it with more detail, and that's why they get priorities and favoritism and for constructive feedback. And those people might actually have bearing constructive criticism that affects the design of the game, right? They are the interface between a person who just wants something good versus a person who can describe the things that may be good or may not be good, right? And right now, reviews serve that way. I think over 95% of reviews are not constructive criticism. It is emotional criticism, and that's sufficient to guide business things. But it doesn't involve exchanging ideas for what the next game should be or what design will be popular. It is a good evidence for whatever currently is works. So when you think about games nowadays, the most popular games and the most money-making games change the least over time. They are mostly samey most of the time, because the feedback they get is not based on changing things and improving things because of independent thinking or critical solving problems. It's based on feedback of emotion. So if they keep saying, oh, I love this game, it feels great, it feels like Dark Souls 3 feels like Dark Souls 1 again, okay, our next game should be Dark Souls 1 and 3 with a slight variation, because that'll make us the most money. Or that's the, and then you're thinking, oh, now you're painting them as, no, that'll make them the most money, and it will be the safest, and it's based on feedback from the majority of people, because the feedback doesn't tell them anything about how they should change the game, or willing to change the game, or outside thinking or things. Because most of the time, the majority of the comments are, oh yeah, this is exactly what I wanted, which happens to be very, very similar to what they already made 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, remake, remaster, iteration, gaming industry, right? Apps, very similar. Apps are very similar. Language learning, very similar. And yet, it doesn't stop someone from saying Anki is better than WaniKani. when they both work, and the stuff that people highlight about Anki are the stuff that highlights from WaniKani, but I can earnestly tell you, if I start using Anki, I would probably highlight the differences. There are things that are actually different between the platforms, right? In order to draw some contrast. Because when someone says something is better, it has to be comparable, which is great. They focus on the things that are comparable. And then different is what I'm looking for. Because if something is better or worse, I usually think of, is it sufficient? So if it's sufficient, then that's fine. That's okay. If you're able to tell me how it is different instead of focusing on things that are similar, maybe I'll be a little bit more interested. But a lot of times when I ask someone, oh, so what makes it better? They would name something that I feel is in both of the products. And that makes sense. It tracks because that's how you compare things. And then there's the opposite. The people who think something is trash and something is really good. And the thing that is really good is the thing they use. And they would only name the things that are different between them, which makes them incomparable. You cannot compare things that exist in one case and doesn't exist in the other. That is not comparison. That is contrast. You know, hence the whole compare and contrast two products, right? It's in my opinion, it's an erosion of the English usage of compare and contrast. Comparison means comparing and contrasting now. So that's how I kind of negotiate when someone says, this is better than that. It's like, oh, really? That one has native speakers and this one does not. That's not comparable. Then one just has the thing you want and the other one doesn't. So effectively the other one has nothing and that one has everything. Is there more to this comparison? Because I would like to hope that you're actually comparing something that is comparable instead of a 0 and 1. Like, I can tell you that if you like apples and you don't like oranges, then apples have everything and oranges have nothing. And yet people like oranges and apples. People don't like either, and everywhere in between, right? So how does this all lead back? It leads back to language learning, offering advice, critical thinking, and leap of logic. Leap of logic happens a lot. Very convenient. And if you don't like this long-winded discussion with myself, or like whoever is listening who's not interested in this, it makes sense. It makes sense. You cut the gristle, right? These things take time. So if you don't like long explainers, hopefully you're doing that with yourself when you have difficult problems, right? Problems that may or may not be so simple enough to find someone able to solve them for you, or any singular source to solve for you. But perhaps one day you'll find that your life's problems are really complicated and there are 7 or 8 or even 20 or lifetimes worth of things you can try, blend together, make shift, and make your life all that better day by day, right? In a way, it's ironic that I'm going to say this, but trust the process. That's my reductive way of trying to sound trendy, while also being very clear that when I say trust the process, it is not the process that is recommended by someone who's selling a product, like one product. Maybe a person who sells like 20 different products and they spent their entire life dedicated to a single problem, but attacking the problem in 20 or 30 different ways. I probably trust that person. But if someone is selling you a reductive solution to a problem that you yourself is having a lifetime of problems trying to solve, then I don't think a product like that will, a singular product like that will be able to solve that. But you can use it to work on some of the aspects, right? Learn to do that. Say no to leap of logic when it comes to complex problems. Say yes, welcome, the devil's in the details, and maybe make a sport out of it. I certainly have made a sport out of this, right? This conversation. How do I tease apart a comment, a 1-minute comment that someone made about Duolingo, like in 100 different people last year? Tear it apart and reconstruct it. Make it sound positive regardless of how negative it is, or something like that, right? Use it as fuel or whatever your pursuits are. Let's see. This one's a flex too, isn't it? It is. See, this one is also different. If I'm happy, it's not ko. It's not ko. What's the kun of happy? Huh. I'm not thinking about this properly. I think I'm going down the wrong rabbit hole. We'll move this to the end. Okay. That's a flex. What do we have here? This might be too. So yeah, it really is. Oh, this one's fine.
劇的
This is straightforward. Gekiteki. Oh. Kind of. Oh yeah. Oh yes. This is that one requires some TLC. This one too. This doesn't.
大阪弁
Osaka bit.
2人
Study. That's a good burn. Kind of. It is a kun first.
無知
Uchi. Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh no. I don't know. Oh no, just kidding.
3人
Sunny, I'm like, what am I doing? Yeah, that's an okay burn. An okay burn. I had a bit of a brain fart.
火曜日
Ayobi. This is fine too. That's a good burn.
木曜日
Mokuyobi. This is fine too.
悲劇
Higeki. Oops. Oh no, wait. This is special, and the meaning is special too. Dang, this one's tough. It's irrational. Oh no, wait, this isn't special. I just typed it incorrectly.
無茶
Mucha. But the meaning is a leap. That's a leap too.
2
Good burn. That's fine. Slightly different. It's hybrid. It's a compound word. And
手荷物
Enimots. How do you spell? Yes. This is legacy. From Chinese, legacy.
劇場
Yakijo. That's fine. That's also legacy. There's quite a bit of legacy or overlap from Chinese.
小説
Josetsu ne? Shosetsu is slightly slightly a flex, and now I don't remember what it is. Like a small theory. What is considered a small theory? I'm at the end, so the last two are the two that I skipped. Anata no ichiban suki na shousetsu wa nan desu ka? What is the small theory? What is your favorite small theory? What's that translate? Shousetsu. Oh, right. Yes, the pivot novel. Right. Is that the only one that they have? Yeah, just novel. Yeah, that's a pivot. And then, oh, okay.
Ichi.
That's a good burn. Whoops. I typed Ichi, then I have habitually typed 2. Okay, and then this one. So we have 2 slightly weak ones for the new ones. This one is a huge pivot. I think I remember it now. It's when you're really happy, you're not really paying attention. Hello there, Bree. Doing pretty well. How are you? How are you today? This one is Saiwai, right? Saiwai. Saiwai.
幸い
And that's like you're really happy, so you don't have time. You're like sighing because you're happy, and then you're not paying attention to what the people are saying. That's kind of weird. Fine. All right. So now we have the 4 lessons that were added because of Wednesday's edition. So let's look at what this session solving. Interesting. So answer. Ooh, answer is a weak one, I think. Answer, an old weak one. And then solve. So they added this. They must have moved it from somewhere. Oh, they might have added it. This might just be a addition, because where I think these two are pretty reasonable. It might have been moved from a later one down to here, because this is recent. This is a while ago. Maybe like 2 months ago. Doing all right. You made some mini chocolate chip and M&M cookies. Ooh, very nice. And you're currently snacking on a few of them. Very nice. Very nice. Sounds solid. What kind of chocolate chips do you use? You solve a problem by working through the answer. Yeah, this is the act of solving. Yeah, I was kind of wondering where solving was. So adding this is nice. What is that? Kai. Uh-oh. Kaito?
回答
Kaito.
回答
Okay. Oh, and then we have the kun right away to solve. That's a pretty alright way to go about it. Let's see, because the hirakana, yeah, sure. The kanji mean, right? Verb is to solve. This is the transitive, yeah, ku. Don't know.
解く
Toku. Interesting. There's something you've been trying to solve for your entire life. Your toe. Why is it shaped like that? Why is it a little crooked? Why is it scheming crooked? Oh. Oh. Maybe one day you'll solve the mystery of your toe. Okay, toku. If I use toku. Yeah.
解く
解く
Alright. Fair enough. Mystery of the toe. And then we have logic or reason. Reason solve. To use reason solve, which is, this is understanding. So understanding, to do understanding is to understand. But cookies like these, semi-sweet, you like, oh, Ghirardelli or Nestle? Solid, yes, yes. Makes sense. Nice contrast. It's nice to have also cookie and M&Ms and create a different flavor profile and texture. Is it a crunchy cookie that you made or a soft cookie? I often think it would be semi-sweet and probably like a softer side cookie, because the M&Ms are a bit of a crunch, and possibly the chips as well. So I got that little soft, crunchy texture mix, as well as the balanced flavor profile. Little pockets of sweetness with pockets of slightly bitter, right? Or like I might even say like dark chocolate chips with M&Ms and on a semi-soft cookie. What is this? 理解する。
理解する。
Oh, 理解する. Okay, 理解する。
理解す
理解する
Fair enough. And then head. We have head part. Yeah, of course, head part is the head. Head part. Ooh, it's a body part, so this could be different. It could be like so weird, like atamabu. Like that would be so weird. Or oh, maybe double kun. What is atamato? Ne?
頭部
Oh, boo. Okay, that's fine. It's normal. but we haven't had to yet. Or the onyomi. Okay, so they introduced the onyomi, which is fine. We can use Chinese legacy because tobu, tobu. Tobu. Let's see. Need a checkup on your head? They head to Tokyo. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that works.
東部
Oh, hey, it's Miyuki.
東部
Tobu.
東部
Tobu. Miyuki has a slightly lower voice than Kyoko.
東部
東部
So they must have recorded this recently. I don't know if most of the later stuff is Miyuki or not, but Kyoko has a much higher baseline tone. You like your cookies a little on the softer side, and yes, like you said, to contrast the crunchy M&Ms. That's right, Bree. I know now you're a baker. You know, you got experience. You know what I'm talking about, right? The texture. Oh, texture is nice to have on top. Why settle? Why settle for less when you can affect the experience? Yeah, crunch, the crunchiness has gotten a new reprieve lately in the culinary world because there's also an element of sound and visuals. It's not like this is some life-defining new wave discovery, but generally speaking, dissection of the culinary arts in terms of like having accessibility to feedback on a large scale, like content creation, really have disseminated a lot of the information that you can elevate the food despite not even changing the ingredients, right? The technique. And then the technique can lead to understanding of other senses that are involved in cooking or like enjoying your meal. The visual, the sound. And where's the sound? A lot of times it's the crunch. The crunch creates like this really interesting interaction with your ears. Sometimes even hearing crunching noise is great. And then, there's some viral ones that it's not a well-kept secret. It's like an obvious in-your-face secret to the point where it's no longer a secret and people don't even process it's happening, like the cheese pull, right? Visually seeing cheese pulls, adding color balance to your cookies. M&Ms work really, really well. M&Ms, especially if you choose to like get different color M&Ms. Now, except blue, like there's something about unnatural, like sometimes people might get, but it's usually pretty safe to add color. Blue for whatever reason doesn't come up too often when it comes to like eating things, right? Like the last time you think about blue, the closest thing is probably a blueberry. So if you have like happen to be a person who snacks on blue things by chance, those are a lot rarer than the other colors. But having them M&Ms is a great idea to place on cookies because they have different color profiles. So you can even get M&Ms in different color profiles, right? Don't have to change ingredients too much. And some of the conveniences, they can elevate your enjoyment. Like food doesn't have to end with does it provide the calories or the nutrition? Well, it should though. It should, of course. Let's see. Where we have Kaito.
回答
Kaito. And what?
解く
Toku. Oops.
理解する
Likai-suru.
東部
Tobu. Tobu. So boo functions like z. So touzi, right? Touzi or something like that. And then this is just tobu. Alright. Okay. Also made some Cajun chicken Alfredo for dinner with roasted sugar snap peas. Nice. Nice. That sounds delicious. You sure you don't just want to like share with the world your shortcuts? Cajun chicken Alfredo. Do you how do you prep Alfredo? Do you add like broccoli or something on the side to complement the Alfredo? And then the roasted sugar snap sounds like a wonderful compliment to the Cajun chicken Alfredo. What type of pasta do you use for an Alfredo? Or do you just eliminate, like, there are ways you can, there are people who eat like just the Alfredo on top of chicken and then have a different alternative vegetable to like have a cut out the pasta because of like dietary constraints and glycemic stuff. But I assume you're preparing pasta noodles with that, like linguine or something, with your chicken, Cajun chicken Alfredo, right? Tell me a little bit about your pasta hierarchy. If you say spaghetti noodles, we can't be friends anymore. I'm kidding, but you would have a tough time selling spaghetti noodles with Alfredo. Either broccoli or sugar snap peas. Okay, either or. Okay. The night you had some sugar snap peas, you had to use up. Ah, okay. Sometimes you use spinach. Yes, spinach is a great compliment. Balance out that palate. You're actually the type to like smaller noodles, so you prefer penne or I actually don't know how to pronounce that cut. Farfalle for Alfredo. Interesting. So you wouldn't be abhorrent when you see someone use spaghetti with Alfredo. We can't be friends anymore. Brie. That's gross. I'm kidding. Penne sounds great. Penne really, that's like not even, that's not nudes, right? So penne works. Maybe like, so whatever to capture that sauce, Interesting. I'm obviously joking around. I was just curious what your shape preferences are. The cut affects like the texture, the experience. Spaghetti with Alfredo is a nightmare. The sauce would just be in the bottom. That's the comment. That's the comment that I would that's what I meant by you. It would be a very tough sell. It would be a very, very tough sell if you said spaghetti is your go-to for a sauce like that, because it would very much not capture the sauce. So a penne is a great one. Maybe even like bow ties, elbow mac and elbow macaroni. Those stuff captures sauce, and then a thicker noodle would be ideal. Like maybe it can be thin, but like wide. Like thin but wide. Spaghetti is like, I hope you made your sauce super thick. Like, it's gotta like be massive thick. Even then, it'd be a tough sell for spaghetti. Fun times. I haven't had your classic veggie, your super green veggie, Alfredo, and chicken. I haven't had that combination in a very long time. Oh, they're bow tie noodles. Oh, okay. Rotini isn't bad either. Yes, yeah, rotini for sure. Rotini is the spiral things, right? Or is it? Am I thinking of something else? Yeah, rotini is the spiral cut. Oh, like corkscrew things. Bow tie noodles. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I think I go to them most of the time. And since I don't make my own pasta, sorry folks, but I don't have like it's fine. I would buy rotini in 3 colors. I would do a tricolor. Regardless, like, not necessarily. A lot of people would say, oh, you buy them because there's like different fibers or nature. It's real relevant. It's still pasta, but the colors. I like tricolor. Despite if it's pre-made or not, I like tricolor pasta. So it is kind of nice to have a box of tricolor pasta somewhere where you just have that slight green and red, and then, you know, your classic yellowish white pasta. Usually you want white because that means that it wasn't flash fried and dehydrated, but that's still goes yummy in my tummy for the most part. Yeah, I like seeing spinach, tomato colors next to my like starchy colors, which is pretty much white or yellow, anywhere from white to yellow. Love that pop of green. That's the broccoli, snap peas. Gotta have some of that. It's great. And then if you're like so inclined, there is a recipe for like slightly using sun-dried tomatoes for like the slight acidity added to an Alfredo, right? I mean, we're gonna be like, we're not hurting any more feelings from the Italians about Alfredo, since Alfredo is not that either, but adding a little crushed tomatoes give that slight acidity balance to the cream, so you have like an interesting extra layer. Like sometimes, a lot of times, cream and sauce can be balanced really well with a acid component, and tomatoes work wonders, especially in like pasta dishes, or have like little tiny roasted cherry tomatoes on the side, like on the outside, so when you're crunching on your snap peas, you're also getting a little delightful cherry tomatoes, and then going at your pasta and your Cajun chicken. And cherry tomatoes obviously come very convenient. You just place them on the pan for a little bit, get them a little, you know, slightly Cajunized. And then you can peel it off or just put it on your plate. They'll get like a little slightly wilted, if you will, but it brings out the aroma. And then shove a little bit of tomato, your choice of leafy greens, and then the Alfredo. Different textures too. Roasted cherry tomatoes is a little bit smushier, and then your greens would be very snappy, and then you have the slightly bouncy texture of the pasta with your meaty source of protein. And then if you really want slightly a oily thing, a slight drizzle of your most aromatic tasting olive oil on, like, slightly on top. And if you have spices, right? Spices add a little kick if you have some spice tolerance, and maybe like pepper flakes, hot pepper flakes. Your choice of hot pepper flakes. And if you're really crazy like me, who's like multicultural and like fusion and all that, some grounded Szechuan peppercorns for an entirely different dimension. And then we will fully embrace how the culinary arts have become a smash of fusion from like an American perspective. Anyways, my mouth is watering just from talking about preparing that dish for someone. Yeah, man. And then I would probably prepare like a chai tea or something. something with a spot of cream and chilled beverage to complement that. Chai tea would work pretty well. A chai tea latte or something like that, or like the dinner. That's only if I'm hosting though. Obviously, I don't prepare this stuff for myself. I do nutrients maintenance. Just slap some green, put some garlic, like slap some green into some garlic and light, I don't know, light oyster sauce and soy sauce concoction, and then go make some white rice, and then 2 sunny side eggs or over easy eggs, and then that's it. That would be my meal. And 1 fillet of fish, of some fish, and that would be the meal. But if I have to host, there's gonna be some eccentric, but they're not difficult, right? Like, there's a difference between spending a lot of time and difficulty making food than understanding at least some fundamentals about food in order to elevate, so that one day it can be like, hey, I made this dish, and they're like, oh, it's very interesting tasting, like it has lots of components that work together. It's like, yeah, so you must have worked really hard on it. No, I did not. I learned what my parents do way back when I was a kid. They learned to take ingredients, and they're not the greatest ingredients because good ingredients cost a lot of money and they're not very readily available. They learn to adapt to a palate and then utilize technique and efficiency. You know, a combination of efficiency and techniques to elevate your food game. I think despite having access to cheaper ingredients, maybe even lower quality ingredients, you should really enjoy your meal regardless. And there are many ways to elevate without having to feel like you're missing out or anything like that. I think there's a big misnomer when you get so used to having access. Like, I love the idea that everyone has access to high quality ingredients. However, you can also do with the ingredients you have, you can do more with the ingredients you have. You got a lot of recipes from your dad too. He learned a lot from his Czechoslovakian mother, some of his recipes are definitely different. Yeah. Man, I can tell you, it's like pulling teeth trying to get little goobers these days, you know, all those gooberinos, trying to expand their palate. I think it's something that life. Oh, here we go. There's the Twitch view bot spammer. Thank you, my friend. This account was created yesterday. Oh, you could do better. You could do better. Automated account spammer. You could do better than that. Give me an account that is at least 10 years old, so that I know that you paid for it or you had to go and find it. Cheap viewers, keep on working at it. Low effort. Yeah. Nowadays gooberinos, ooh, their eating exposure is fairly limited. I think that's a place where you can get such unique experiences that are inexplicable. Taste is so fascinatingly nebulous still. And all I have is, I know a goober that prefer to eat plain white bread than anything else. It's kind of hard to have the person be excited about anything other than plain white bread or fine bread. I understand though. I understand that you got to start somewhere, man. Don't get me wrong, you used to be a very, very picky, but I think the older you've gotten, the more willing you've been trying new things. There are some things you like now that you wouldn't have even walked in the same room as when I was younger. And palates change too, right? So we had to keep in that offers an opportunity. You know what's funny about that? What if palates didn't change? Like, think about the coincidences. It might be a coincidence, right? This is likely a coincidence, but man, what would people feel? How would food be like if humans' palate didn't change at their age? That makes for a great premise for either a compelling anime show or a very in-depth science fiction show that gets canceled after 2 seasons because no one cares. But I would care. I would totally care. So whoever is a science fiction writer out there who's like Steven Spielberg baller, and they say like they can write whatever and convince whatever publisher to make the movie, do it. I want to see a compelling science fiction show. Like, it may be a one shot, one season. Hypothetically, what happens if humans stop experiencing even more mundane changes? Like, we've already done science fiction when it comes to like, oh, what happens if humans don't die, you know, like they're immortal, like what does the structure, like if you watch Alter Carbon, that would be a great example of what happens when people don't die, right? They grow out of their mortal shell. But what about the mundane stuff, like changing palates? That's a very interesting question, because humans will inevitably have a change of palate. So both psychologically, experience can change that, but also biologically, your palate does change. So it's like one part of aging has become ingrained both intuitively and or intellectually if you're aware of it. But one of the experiences when you get older is that your palate does change, and it might lose sensitivity, etc. But what happens is then it naturally also opens up for those who like to spend time exploring for most of their life. It opens up the opportunity that they would have experienced new culinary experiences. Now, there are individuals who instead, like if you want to compare and contrast, this cohort is very reproducible in terms of like how many people gone through this. There are individuals who continue to stick to their ways as they grow older and never discover that, and that's what happens is they no longer enjoy the same foods that they used to because a loss of sensitivity tends to happen. So those who are picky eaters for a lifetime, right, at the end, one of their activities that they don't enjoy is eating, which is interesting if you think about it. And we're talking about the human condition here. When you stick to eating the same thing for the rest of your life and you compel yourself to do that, it's kind of like saying when you're studying a language, you're always going to study the same thing for the rest of your life, the same way the rest of your life. There's a habitual nature of, despite biological reasons, why eating the same thing will eventually get boring. Like, you can even experience this in a shortened lifetime. If you eat the same thing for a month straight or 6 months straight, like if you limit your palate and deliberately, it will create complacency and it will dull your senses to that satisfaction. So when you get older, oftentimes one of the recommendations, at least one of the quote-unquote fun things to experiment to make someone livelier and maybe have things to look forward to, is they become more experimental when they're eating. And one of the consequences, again, coincidences, is that palate sensitivity either changed or they got dulled out. And then now it allows for meeting the criteria, especially for those who are originally picky eaters, because their sensitivity is incredibly high, right? I always joke that I burned all the sensitivity out of my like mouth at a young age. So now I'm just like, when I become like 70 years old, I'm gonna be like pouring lava into my mouth, and I'm gonna be like, yep, we're okay. I almost felt it. Because at the rate I'm going, my sensitivity is like, I will likely have a heart attack in order to feel something from eating. And I'm being overly dramatic, of course. There are other ways. But yeah, that's kind of cool that you're more willing to explore. I think eating is kind of like learning, in my opinion. If you have lots of things you can enjoy, when you go to eat, it feels fantastic when you're like, I don't know what I'm going to eat today because everything sounds fantastic. And you might be saying, well, isn't that also the recipe for getting fat and obese and stuff? No, actually, that's not it. That's that, in my opinion, is a big misconception. Limited ability to eat, limited palate options is more likely to be coincidental, again, correlation, right? Corollary to a behavior that has less flexibility to adjust to the need for changing diet, because your diet will change as well as you grow older, like because maybe your activity changes, your responsibilities changes. So having more options and being able to invest, it leads to a holistic improvement in people's dietary choices and their ability to adapt. So when you think about picky eating, oftentimes this might sound a little counterintuitive, but it's just as likely, if not more likely, that a picky eater who happens to be picky for very specific reasons will have a lower outcome in their personal dietary fitness than one that has an eclectic arrangement and a more eclectic palate, because that also means you're more likely to pick up nutritional changes and dietary changes. For example, broccoli, peas, carrots, Brussels sprouts. Oftentimes Brussels sprouts, like leafy greens, are incredibly bitter, but continuing to revisit that as you're growing older becomes a newer aspect. You might be able to enjoy broccolis in the future, and like asparagus and whatnot. Those things are subtle now, and they become an additional option. But when you're a picky eater, when you're early, it's often high in caloric density because you're young. You need that. You're really active. You're growing. So oftentimes things in high caloric density, especially convenience foods, they're high in caloric density, tends to hold your attention. But when you're getting older, your changing palates can offer an opportunity to like eat a tomato, which is like fantastic step. If you don't enjoy tomatoes now and you're like, oh, tomatoes aren't hateful right now, that's awesome. Really awesome. It goes a long way. Spinach is a great one. Kale, ooh, I can't tell you, I'm still pretty sensitive to kale. Kale still feels like eating dirt. But I am someone who says I enjoy bitter melon, and I guess bitter melon, it would be an acquired taste too. You used to have a very horrible diet. It was literally only pasta with meat sauce and chips. Okay, you wouldn't have dreamed of eating broccoli, peas, spinach, or any other vegetables, or even fruits? Interesting. At that point in your life, you're living with someone who also is picky, and they make you almost fear of new food. I see. Yeah, I have this goober that we tried to do an experiment, but he doesn't like going outside. But that's also a problem, but like going out. But whenever I'm with someone, I get all up in their business about their food preferences because I want to share a meal with them. So oftentimes I would ask them, how exploratory do you want to be today? Would you like a food if I told you I like it? That's kind of how I do things. When I go out, like I'm about to go out in August, I go out once a year because of anime. When I'm with someone, when I win the guest, I often like, it would be someone that I know possibly for a while, and my answer often is asked, how experimental do we want to get today? Because let's make it an event to remember, right? An event to remember. And it might be the Chinese culture in me, or possibly the Western, but you gotta share a great meal, and an adventure one too. possibly with some hits and misses, but the idea is we took a chance, right? I'm not talking about like a health chance, you know. Don't go and risk food poisoning or something like that. But generally speaking, it's an event to have, and having food, eclectic food preferences is a wonderful way to spend the rest of your life seeking that. What do you make money for? One of them is food. Like, you're human. That's one of the wonderful senses you can explore. And then infuse it with sentimentalism by having a guest with you, right? And then infuse it with some fear. I get it, fear, but excitement is a complement to fear. So at some point when you sharing food with great company and know that you have the capacity to have a food preference change, that becomes more of an excitement with some anxiety, but not so much more fear, right? It's the fear of food, and being open-minded about food is kind of a lifetime struggle that I hope people do not have, especially when you only have so long to be consuming things. Don't make your eating is it's obligational, like it's necessary. So cheapening your experience, I'm not talking about like buying Wagyu and high quality ingredients. I'm talking about cheapening the experience of it. Like, you can do better with your meals. Your meals will always be there as a human being. And I know water is a thing, but occasionally you can sidestep water for bits. Sleeping is another thing. So yeah, I'm all about sounding like a broken record when it comes to food. The only fruit you remember liking back then was strawberries. Oh, that's interesting. That's not as not on as sweet on the list, but it is certainly possibly sweeter than the other berries. Intriguing. Huh. Even then, the person you lived with didn't like them, so they were never a consistent part of your diet. I see. Berries are OP. If you're like talking about when you're thinking about nutrition berries are pretty OP. And they're the most readily available in, like, depending on where you are, but geographically, like in the Western Hemisphere, like where the United States is, berries are really accessible. Blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, maybe not goji berries. Goji, they're I think they're usually imported, but lots of berries. Like, if you want to add some convenience, frozen berries go a great way. Dude, you absolutely love most berries now. Strawberries are still one of your favorites, though. I see. Yeah, like how to make. Oh, here's something that I often wondered if people do. If you splash some water, or like make a quick one fix smashed berry thing and put it on a slice of bread or something, you can, like, I've always thought if someone did this at all, where they would slightly warm all the berries, then just smash them, add a bit of simple sugar, and then spread it on like toast, which that might as well be jam. But it also keeps a lot of maybe some of the properties of the berry. So you're taking like frozen berries, you let them sit, and then those crystals will make, as the berries like kind of like warm up, those crystals might break up like the integrity, so you just smash it and smear it on your bread. I always thought that might be a great way to take advantage of berries. But frozen berries are fantastic. Convenience meets nutrition. So versatile. Bananas are overrated. Heck, bananas. I'm kidding. Sorry if people like bananas. I think bananas is the picky eater's crutch when it comes to food preferences, or like especially fruit preferences. A banana is the thing you want to default to if you're having palate and picky eating issues, because bananas are very, very agreeable next to strawberries. I would think strawberries is the more agreeable version. It's not like you're throwing a kiwi at someone. It's like, hey, oh, you don't like fruits? Here's a kiwi. Start with a kiwi. And I don't think that, like, if that person is having problems with fruit and you offer them a kiwi, there's a very low chance that they're gonna ever like fruit for a while. You like bananas, but you mostly use them in overnight oats as a sweetener. Yep. Bananas is a great sweetener, indeed. My father used to do the thing where he takes a watermelon, if it's summer, so it is summer, so watermelon is a thing. You take a watermelon, you spend the time to prep the watermelon, so you cut all the watermelon up, right? And then you put it in a bowl, right? And then you add either some salt, or you add something to draw out the watermelon. Typically you can add a light dash of salt, or you can use sugar. That's still adding sugar on top of sugar though. And then you let it just sit for maybe like a day or two in your fridge, and then you'll collect the water, and then you have like this bowl of slightly wet, soupy but interesting tasting melon, and it's like a different way to experience it. Or you can just dash some on. It's really interesting. I don't know if it's an Asian thing or not, but whenever summer comes up, watermelon. It's watermelon. If you ever watch an anime and summer's around, maybe like even Golden Week, maybe a little as early as spring, probably a watermelon. Again, watermelon. 西瓜. Right. Okay. Alright, let me complete this. So we have long ago, gambler, previous, mask, happiness, conflict, treasure, chess, and noon. And then we're just going straight into the reads now. Okay. Atsuna, Atsuna, Atsuna. Iji, Kun, Kyu, Koku, 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 Shu, Rui, Rui, Ho, Hi, Za, Heck. I forgot this today too, or like I paused on this. Ay. Alright, I'm skipping that. Okay. Zen. Ka. My. Ku. Keen. Kitsu. And Ko. Oh no, not Ko anymore. Tata. We have to change this up. Tata. And Ame. So what did I forget? I mean, I forgot, by the way. I forget all the time. Forget. How do I forget? Bowling. Bowl. Oh, bowl. Alright, that's a wrap for today. Got a little bit of a side story earlier. Talked about leap of logic, right? That's where it all started. Talking about flexing. How one flex thinks things. Alright, folks. That's a wrap for today for WaniKani. We're gonna watch this later. Arigatou gozaimasu. Feel free to follow along. Pick up WaniKani for yourself if you so choose. Feel free to share some stories, exchange some ideas. You're always welcome. So for those who are only interested in WaniKani, minasan mata ne. I'm gonna take a quick bathroom break, walk around, get the blood flowing to my legs, and I'll be back for Hanzo Hero. Thank you.